Hello, and welcome to We Live for Saturday, your favorite college football podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike, and with me today on this auspicious day, as always, is my fellow co-host, John. John, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing. Things are good.
Awesome.
Can you hear me?
You cut out for a second, but are we good now?
Off to a great start. Fantastic. Yes, I'm doing great. Okay. Yeah. No, things are great, man. I'm just getting through March. We survived so far. So,
had a nice cold day today. I like that.
We had a nice cold day. It was one of those days where it was just kind of nice to be inside and get some work done, which I did. So, just nothing much to report on right now. Life is doing well, and hopefully, more exciting things on the horizon.
Yeah, man. I was recently in Michigan, by Lake Michigan. And not only is it beautiful there, but I walked into what I can only describe as a dispensary that was like a party going on inside of a Target. And okay. I won't go too into, this is a kid show, this is a family friendly show. I'm not going to get too into it or anything, but it was like, for a certain kind of person, it would be Mecca. It really would. Okay. It was like this massive thing, and everything was like 30% off, 40% off, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, wow, this is crazy.
Huh. Well,
so that's the way it is in Michigan now. And I suppose being in the cities come next year, that's going to be the way it is here too.
That's what we're hearing,
Yeah.
It's about time. That'll be good.
Overdue for sure. Prohibition never did anybody any good. Whether you want to do that stuff or not, that's your own business. Yeah. But prohibition never did anyone good.
I agree.
Yeah, I'd never seen anything like that though. It was in a border town, border town to Indiana. And it was I was impressed.
Huh. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I haven't partook in a while, and I'm not against it, but like I've always been for the legalization, and so I think that's a good move in the right direction. So that's exciting. Good for them.
Yeah, I know. I was never seen anything like that before. So
yeah,
thought that was kind of cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well, should we get into our concept for today?
Let's get into the concept. I mean, there's not much else to report on today. It's we're in the doldrums, man.
Oh yeah, so. The news is not happening. We're in that weird spot where spring ball is kind of happening, but nobody's talking about it much yet. Mm-hmm. And players are like having their pro days and stuff like that. They just had the NFL Combine, so there's been a lot of focus on that. Mm-hmm. So most of the news that's been out is like, this guy looked like a 5th round pick, but now he's going to be a 3rd round pick. And it's like, great, like good for him for moving up. But yeah. Dude, that's me that's the sound of me falling asleep too.
Yeah. Snooze fest, man. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I can't, unless like if it's a player I know who like is like the Gophers, like I'm rooting for them. So I'm following them a little bit.
Yeah.
And seeing how they're doing and all that kind of stuff. Nickelback Jack Henderson was not invited to the Combine, but he had a monster pro day, dude.
Good.
Vertical, jumped almost 40 inches and ran a 4.4 reportedly.
Wow.
Yeah. So like,
not surprised.
Dude, I'm not either. I didn't understand why he wasn't invited to the Combine in the first place. He's a baller.
Yep.
He's an absolute baller. He can play.
It's because of it's because the fact that there was, the team he's on. If he had a different sticker on the side of his helmet, it would have been different. But
it's possible. But man, I don't know though. It's not like they have a hard time finding the rest of our guys.
That's true. That's fair.
They had representatives from every NFL team at Minnesota's pro day today.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, I don't know, man. Some guys slip through the cracks though, and Jack Henderson is one that I hope he gets drafted. I think just about every team has a guy who's like borderline to get drafted, and like what a great player he is if he played for your team, right? Yeah. But like, will the NFL appreciate that player as much as they should? You'll see.
True.
And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't.
Well, good for him. I'm glad he's doing well. Hopefully he does. Hopefully he can make it in the NFL and has a wonderful long career. He's also, from what I've heard, is just a really good guy, really funny, really interesting guy to talk to. And I think, isn't he Cajun? Isn't he from Louisiana?
Yeah, dude, he's from Louisiana. His girlfriend apparently made gumbo for the whole team, which that's a big football team. It's got to be a lot of gumbo. Even if it's just for the safety room, if you put the safeties and the nickelbacks, that's a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Good luck to them. Good luck to everybody out there on their pro days.
Everyone is chasing their dreams, man. Whatever team you play for, good luck to you. Like, good for you for getting so far and working so hard and all that kind of stuff. Because, like, it is the thing, man. It's to put yourself out there like that and try to achieve a dream. You know, I respect all those guys for giving it a shot.
100%, man. Absolutely. Well, before you introduce the next section of our podcast, I'm gonna get into this, which like I always do. If you want to find We Live for Saturday, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. You can find Mike at Alibaba26. You can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. And you can email us, We Live for Saturday, B1G@gmail.com.
And if you can, go to the YouTube page and subscribe. You just have to click the subscribe button. And then also when we have new podcasts, you'll get an alert and you'll know right away that there's a new one. So there's an advantage to you too. And it's a huge advantage for us. We want to keep growing the pod over the off season. And so, appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone who has subscribed already. So why are we dressed like this? Well, I'm not going to say stealing. We're reappropriating an idea that we saw on another podcast, The Solid Verbal.
Yep.
So we will link in the comments. We'll link to The Solid Verbal so that you can see the original if you want to. But they did State of the Union of college football. And
excellent job, by the way.
They did a great job. And I will say their sound effects are much better than ours because ours don't exist. We don't have sound effects. Whereas Ty was able to make his speech sound like it was in a hall, in a big hall with applause.
Yes.
Which was pretty cool. Like,
it was pretty cool.
Oh man, super cool. So good for them for doing that. We aren't that advanced yet, technologically. We may get there at some point when we have a little more assistance with the podcast, but for now, we're not going to be quite as good there. But we thought it was a really cool idea. So we are doing the State of the Union of the Big Ten. Specifically Big Ten football, but the Big Ten as a whole.
Yes.
And John, you are gonna be our Big Ten commissioner, talking about how great the Big Ten is, and then I will be giving the rebuttal.
If only I were.
If this only right. Oh man. I'd nominate you today.
I would not let you down.
I believe it.
It would be perfect. And there would be no questions asked. This is the way it would be. And it would be fantastic. Everyone will love it.
Nobody would be on Peacock anymore.
Nope. Peacock gone. NBC, sure, but
yes, but that Peacock thing, man, that really grinds my gears.
Only Notre Dame games are on Peacock now, like all of their games.
All of their games. That's funny.
Unless they're playing a Big Ten team, so more incentive. But anyway, get into that. Cool.
All right. Well, then let's get into it. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, college football fans, I present to you the commissioner of the Big Ten Conference.
Thank you. I appreciate that introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, football fans, assembled media, and proud supporters of the Big Ten Conference. Today, we stand united in celebration, not just of a sport, but of a legacy, a tradition, and an unstoppable force of athletic excellence. Big Ten football. That's right. From the first snap to the final whistle, from the hallowed grounds of the iconic Rose Bowl to the thrilling chills of a last-second touchdown at the Shoe, Big Ten football stands as a beacon of pride, passion, and perseverance. It is a testament to the power of teamwork, the glory of competition, and the relentless pursuit of greatness. The Big Ten Conference, my friends, is where legends are made. Every Saturday in the fall, across this great land, the excitement is palpable, the energy electrifying. When the teams take the field, you know you're about to witness history. With a legacy that stretches back to 1896, the Big Ten isn't just a conference, it's a dynasty, a tradition of excellence that transcends generations. It is here that we see some of the most dynamic, electrifying athletes who push the boundaries of speed, strength, and strategy. It's where the grit of determination of our student athletes take center stage, showcasing not just their athletic prowess, but their dedication to excellence, both on and off the field. From the soaring passes to the bone-crushing tackles, every play is a symphony of passion and precision. Think about the legendary programs that have risen to the top in the Big Ten. The fierce rivalry of Michigan and Ohio State, the intensity of Penn State's relentless running game, the speed of Oregon, the precision of Washington, and the grit of Minnesota. Every team in the Big Ten brings its own unique flair to the game. But together, we form a family that elevates college football to unprecedented heights. But it's not just about the victories, the championships, or the records, though there are plenty of those who go around. It's about the spirit of competition, the tradition of excellence, and the unyielding passion that our fans, our communities, and our universities pour into this game. Every stadium, from the famed Big House to the Shoe, from Kinnick Stadium to Beaver Stadium, is filled with tens of thousands of voices chanting, cheering, and believing in the power of the game. When we talk about college football, there's no question that we're discussing more than just a game. We're talking about tradition, passion, and an unrivaled sense of pride that courses through the veins of players, coaches, and fans alike. And when we're talking about the best of the best, there's one conference that stands tall above the rest. The Big Ten Conference. Let me be clear. The Big Ten is not just a conference. It's the heart and soul of college football. And here's why. 1, unmatched tradition and legacy. The Big Ten has been the bedrock of college football for over a century. Established in 1896, it's one of the oldest and the most respected conferences in the country. The history of the Big Ten isn't just about the wins on the field. It's about the names, the programs, and the culture that have shaped the sport as we know it. Think about the legendary programs like Michigan, Ohio State, and Minnesota. The iconic coaches like Woody Hayes, Bernie Bierman, and Bo Schembechler. These are names that have created a legacy that transcends generations. The Big Ten doesn't just play the game. It defines the game. 2, a competitive powerhouse. The Big Ten is a power in this day and age, just as it was in yesteryear. The Big Ten is home to some of the most competitive teams in college football, from the national powerhouses like Ohio State and Michigan to up-and-coming teams like Penn State and Oregon. To level the play in this conference is unmatched. Year after year, the Big Ten consistently produces top-tier talent that goes on to shine at the next level in the NFL. It's no coincidence that the Big Ten has produced some of the most successful and high-profile athletes in the history of professional football. And let's not forget about the fierce rivalries that make Big Ten football so special. Whether it's the game between Ohio State and Michigan or the annual battle for Paul Bunyan's axe, these are games that have become legends in their own right. Number 3, consistently strong bowl postseason presence. The Big Ten consistently sends a high number of teams to bowl games and to the playoff each season, showcasing the depth and quality of the conference. The Big Ten sent 4 teams to last year's college football playoff, including the national champion Ohio State Buckeyes. Whether it's the Rose Bowl, the Citrus Bowl, or college football playoff, Big Ten teams regularly represent the conference on the biggest stages. That kind of sustained success isn't an accident. It's a testament to the commitment of excellence, the high caliber coaching, and the relentless drive to win that defines the Big Ten Conference. Number 4, fan base and passion. What would we do without the fans, huh? Perhaps what truly sets the Big Ten apart is its fan base. The passion and dedication of Big Ten fans is unparalleled. From the tailgates to the packed stadiums, from the chants and cheers to the pride that radiates from every corner of the conference, Big Ten fans make the experience of college football something truly unique. The atmosphere at a Big Ten game is second to none. It's a combination of tradition, energy, and community that makes it more than just a football game. It's an event that unites generations of fans, creating a sense of belonging and camaraderie that is hard to find anywhere else. Number 5, the power of the Big Ten networks and exposure. In today's world, where media and exposure play a critical role in college football, the Big Ten has a massive media advantage. The Big Ten Conference not only has its own channel in the Big Ten Network, but the conference has lucrative deals with Fox, CBS, and NBC. This ensures that the vast majority of games are televised, and the few that aren't can still be seen on streaming services like Peacock. Having our games on most of the major networks provides incredible exposure for the teams and players, ensuring that every game is broadcast to a national audience. This level of visibility earns a ton of revenue, which helps recruit top-tier talent, which ultimately boosts the brand of the conference and ensures its teams are always in the national spotlight. Whether you're watching Fox's Big Noon Game, NBC's Big Ten Saturday Night, or anything in between, you know the Big Ten is getting the best coverage in college football. Even better, these new TV deals have made the Big Ten incredibly wealthy. And the Big Ten now dwarfs most of its competition financially. Number 6, the future is bright. While the Big Ten has such a rich and storied past, it's also a conference that looks toward the future with optimism, ambition. The expansion of the conference with schools like USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon now joining the Big Ten solidifies the conference as the most dynamic and forward-thinking in college football. This forward-thinking mindset, paired with the tradition and prestige of the Big Ten, guarantees that this conference will continue to be the gold standard for years to come. Let's talk more about the Big Ten's many recent accomplishments. The additions of Oregon and Washington, along with the earlier additions of USC and UCLA, have only strengthened an already elite league. This is truly a coast-to-coast league now, and that should be viewed as an accomplishment. Oregon proved that in year one, with a Big Ten title and a playoff appearance, the new teams have brought awesome TV ratings to a conference that already had fantastic TV ratings. Let's talk about NIL. What a resounding success it's been for the Big Ten. In the new world of NIL, the schools with the biggest fan bases can afford the most expensive rosters. That is a big part of why the Big Ten has ascended in recent years. The SEC no longer holds hegemony over all of college football. The Big Ten and SEC are roughly equal in resources and TV revenue, having far outstripped the other major conferences in the ACC and Big 12. We have entered the era of the Power Two, and the Big Ten should celebrate its place at top of the mountaintop. While the Big Ten and SEC are 1A and 1B among the conferences, the Big Ten has won the last 2 national titles, and thus the Big Ten is currently 1A to the SEC's 1B. It took a lot of work to catch up with the SEC and outrun the other leagues, and the Big Ten deserves a ton of credit for that. The 2 leagues are equals now, both on and off the gridiron. The upcoming revenue sharing era will benefit the Big Ten as well. It is long overdue for players to be paid directly via revenue, and not just from generous fans and boosters. This will be a boon for the Big Ten, as only the SEC can rival us financially. It will be far easier for most Big Ten teams to pay the maximum amount allowed to the players than it will be for most of the Big 12 and ACC. This will allow the Big Ten to further the financial gap between the Power 2 conferences and everybody else, and will ensure that the Big Ten continues to recruit at an elite level nationally. Our teams draw tens of millions of viewers to our conference every fall Saturday. Yes, Michigan and Ohio State are the top draws, but all our conference teams have legions of devoted fans, and virtually every Big Ten game brings in millions of viewers. Whether it's Ohio State, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, or Purdue and Indiana, or any of our other rivalry games, you see huge viewing audiences. There is excitement every week in the Big Ten, and that's why our TV ratings are so elite throughout the conference every single Saturday, and not just at the top of the big games. I'd like to move on to talk about the exciting things the Big Ten will do in the future. The Big Ten intends to secure 4 automatic bids for the Big Ten playoff every year. That will still leave 1 at-large bid in case there is a 5th deserving Big Ten team ranked high enough to deserve to be in the playoff. The Big Ten got 4 teams in the last playoff. This new auto bid system will ensure that the Big Ten's best 4 teams make the playoff every single year. College football should be a meritocracy. And that's why, instead of retaining buys for conference champions, we will award buys in order of seeding starting in 2026. Yes, the top 5 conference champions will advance to the playoff, but nobody will be guaranteed a bye. Instead, buys will be awarded to the top 4 ranked teams who qualify for the playoff. Seeding will be done 1 through 14 in order of how the playoff committee ranks everybody. And yes, I referenced 14 teams because the playoff will be expanding to 14 in 2026 to 27. So that's going to be exciting and ensure that the Big Ten can retain 4 auto bids. You will no longer see lower-ranked Big 12 or Group of 5 teams supplant the Big Ten in seeding just by virtue of being from a different conference. We will reward the best teams as judged by the playoff committee without any further caveats. The Big Ten is a dynasty in itself. With 2 consecutive national championships courtesy of Michigan and Ohio State, the Big Ten now has the chance to win 3 consecutive national titles for the first time since the Minnesota Golden Gophers won 3 straight national titles in the 1930s. No one has been able to repeat their success. These are heady times, and that success shows how quickly the Big Ten has ascended to the top, now that we finally have a relatively equal playing field in college football. Now, for another subject, let me pivot a bit. Why the Big Ten shouldn't expand south. Now, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, media denizens, and fellow fans of college athletics, Today, I stand before you to also address a critical issue that's been gaining traction in recent years. One that could significantly reshape the landscape of college athletics. The potential expansion of the Big Ten Conference to the South. As we all know, the Big Ten is one of the most prestigious and historic conferences in collegiate sports, with a deep-rooted legacy of academic excellence, fierce competition, and long-standing rivalries. But as the idea of expanding southward continues to emerge, I believe we must pause and consider why this move might not be in the best interest of the conference. Let me list some things here. The cultural and geographic disconnect. First and foremost, the Big Ten is defined by its geographic and cultural ties to the Midwest. The heart of the conference is in the northern and central United States, an area rich with history, tradition, and schools that represents the values of that region. When we talk about expanding south, we risk diluting that identity. The cultural differences between the West Coast, the Midwest, and the South. Oh, don't let me forget the East Coast. Nationwide conference. The cultural differences between the West Coast, East Coast, Midwest, and the South are vast. While the Big Ten prides itself on its emphasis on academic integrity, a commitment to athletic excellence, and rivalries steeped in history, moving south would potentially clash with the unique identity that the Big Ten has cultivated for well over a century. In sports, as in life, identity matters. These cultural disconnects might not only impact fan bases, but also diminish the overall charm and unity that makes the Big Ten so special. One of the reasons the new Big Ten editions have been so successful is because culturally they have very similar values to those in the traditional Big Ten footprint. The Southern schools just do not have that. Number two, the impact on rivalries and tradition. The Big Ten's strength lies not just in the competitive balance, but also in its cherished rivalries. From Michigan versus Ohio State to Iowa versus Minnesota, these games are the lifeblood of the conference. Games that fans plan year-round and that define the very spirit of the conference. Introducing schools from the South could disrupt these rivalries, making them feel less meaningful. Rivalries that have developed over decades, rivalries based on proximity, history, and shared competition. It cannot be replicated by simply adding new teams from the South. Adding Southern schools to the Big Ten would be an attempt to artificially create new rivalries that would struggle to live up to the standards set by the ones we already hold dear. Number three, financial incentives may not be worth the cost. While some argue that Southern expansion would bring in more lucrative television deals, we must question whether the financial windfall is truly worth the potential costs. Yes, adding teams from the South may give the conference access to larger television markets, but the revenue might not justify the potential fragmentation of the Big Ten's brand. Big Ten fans are loyal. They are passionate about their schools, their history, and the region they represent. But that loyalty is based on more than just the games they play. It's based on the conference's coherence and its deep, unshakable identity. We risk alienating our current fan base by losing that sense of unity in favor of financial incentives that may not be sustainable in the long run. Number four, the academic mission of the conference. The Big Ten is known for its emphasis on academic excellence. The conference boasts some of the top universities in the country. And each school in the Big Ten shares a commitment to the educational development of student athletes. This academic mission has helped build the Big Ten's reputation as more than just an athletic powerhouse. It's a league that values scholarship and strives to balance athletics and academics. Many of the schools in the southern part of the United States just do not share the same academic profile as the Big Ten institutions. Well, this is not meant to be a judgment of those schools. It is a fact that academic rigor is a defining feature of the Big Ten. Expanding southward could strain that mission and put into question the integrity of the conference's academic reputation. 5, maintaining competitive balance. Northern schools are uniquely suited to handle the physical and mental demands of athletics in this region. Our teams play in some of the harshest weather conditions, snow, frigid temperatures, and constant challenges that test both players' resilience and the team strategy. These conditions foster a toughness and grit that is emblematic of the Northern spirit. If we were to expand too far south, we risk compromising this competitive balance. In conclusion, while the idea of expanding south may seem attractive to some, it threatens the very essence of what makes the Big Ten Conference special. The geographic and cultural identity, the storied rivalries, the academic reputation, and the strong fan base are not things we should take lightly. Rather than stretching the Big Ten's boundaries into unfamiliar territory, we should focus on preserving the core values that have made the Big Ten a powerhouse in college athletics. Expansion, yes. But expansion that stays true to who we are and what we represent. So I propose we make the case for why Notre Dame and Stanford should be the next additions to the Big Ten Conference. With a landscape that continues to evolve and with collegiate sports reaching new heights, we must look to the future and embrace change in a way that strengthens not only the Big Ten, but the entire landscape of college athletics. The Big Ten is built on a foundation of historic programs, prestigious rivalries, and rich traditions that have shaped the fabric of college athletics, as I have already stated. Notre Dame and Stanford both bring their own storied legacies to the table, making them perfect fits for the conference. Notre Dame, with its unparalleled football tradition, a brand synonymous with excellence, and its deep ties to college football history, is a natural fit for the Big Ten. The Fighting Irish have long been an independent force in college football, but now more than ever, the landscape of college sports demands a new alignment. With Notre Dame's global brand, national following, and history of success, it would elevate the Big Ten's already prestigious football programs and create the kind of cross-country appeal that ensures the Big Ten remains the dominant conference in college athletics. Stanford, on the other hand, represents a perfect balance of academic prestige and athletic excellence. Stanford has long been a powerhouse in multiple sports, from football and basketball to soccer, baseball, and swimming. The Cardinal not only excel in competition, but also bring an Ivy League-like atmosphere to the table, representing a school that understands the value of both academic integrity and athletic achievement. Stanford's unique combination of high-level athletics and academic excellence would raise the profile of the Big Ten and align with its commitment to producing well-rounded athletes. Now, let's discuss geography and expansion. Geographically, both Notre Dame and Stanford provide an opportunity to expand the Big Ten's footprint and create a more nationwide conference presence. With the Big Ten already spanning from the Midwest to the East Coast and the West Coast, adding Notre Dame would strengthen the conference's national presence and attract more fans from the Northeast, the Midwest, nationally, globally. The Irish already have a massive following that stretches across the country and the world. And their inclusion would undoubtedly add to the Big Ten's already impressive television ratings and media exposure. Stanford is a great addition for the existing West Coast schools and Notre Dame, creating new rivalries reestablishing the old, and allowing the conference to compete for national exposure in a region that has become an increasingly critical market in sports. With major media companies vying for content on the West Coast, Stanford would help the Big Ten tap into new revenue streams via Silicon Valley and the Bay Area. This will also strengthen the Big Ten's position as the most powerful conference in college athletics. Now, speaking of revenue, let's talk about the financial impact. Both Notre Dame and Stanford would bring significant financial benefits to the Big Ten. With the ever-increasing revenue generated by media rights deals, both schools would be valuable assets to the conference's negotiation power. Notre Dame, as an independent, already brings in a significant revenue, and by joining the Big Ten, they would only increase the conference's value. Similarly, Stanford's high academic and athletic profile would make them a key piece in maximizing the Big Ten's media and sponsorship deals, pushing the conference's value into new stratospheres. Moreover, expanding the conference with these prestigious schools creates a larger national footprint, attracting more television and streaming deals, sponsorships, and fan engagement across the country, more games, more rivalries, more exposures. This all translates into increased revenue and continued growth for the Big Ten. Finally, let's talk about the future of college athletics. The landscape of college athletics is rapidly evolving. With the ever-changing landscape of NIL deals, conference realignment, and the growing importance of television networks, the Big Ten has the chance to position itself as the future leader in college sports. By adding Notre Dame and Stanford, the Big Ten is not only strengthening its existing programs, but also positioning itself as the most forward-thinking, progressive conference in the nation. These additions show a commitment to continued innovation, geographic expansion, and creating a conference that is well-equipped to adapt to the future of college sports. In conclusion, the addition of Notre Dame and Stanford to the Big Ten Conference is a move that makes sense both historically and in terms of future growth. With their academic and athletic prestige, their ability to bring financial benefits, and their potential to add to the Big Ten's national presence, Notre Dame and Stanford represent the perfect additions to ensure the Big Ten stays ahead of the curve in an ever-evolving world of college athletics. As we look forward to the future, we see nothing but glory on the horizon. The Big Ten continues to evolve, to grow, and to adapt. We are not just a conference. We are a movement. We are innovators, trendsetters, and champions. The future of Big Ten football has never looked brighter, and we are just getting started. So, to the players who give it their all, to the coaches who inspire greatness, and to the fans who never stop believing, thank you. Thank you for being a part of this extraordinary journey. You are the heartbeat of Big Ten football. And together, we will continue to soar to new heights. Let the world hear our roar. Big Ten football is not just a conference, it is the conference. And we are destined for greatness today, tomorrow, and forever. Here's to the greatest and most historic conference in college football. Here's to the Big Ten. Go Big Ten. B1G. B1G. B1G.
Well, that was quite a speech, Commissioner.
You're welcome.
And I have a lot to say about it. ladies and gentlemen, members of the mainstream media, fellow college football fans, and sycophants of the Big Ten Conference, I was filled with dismay listening to my colleague's speech, and I am truly sorry that we were all subjected to that myopic, self-aggrandizing, disingenuous drivel. It falls upon me to correct the many lies and half-truths uttered by my colleague in the blue tie. He, as commissioner of the Big Ten, is contractually obligated to be dishonest about the current state of the conference and of college football as a whole. Sure, the Big Ten is admittedly an old, historic, and once honorable conference. My colleague would have you believe that he cares about old, historic conferences. However, that claimed veneration of old historic conferences is nothing but a lie told by a man with an agenda. How do I know that's true? Because there was another conference, a historic conference, an important conference that no longer exists. The Pac-12 housed sports and education and tradition for generations. It was an absolute institution on the West Coast. But that didn't stop my greedy colleague and his minions from destroying the Pac-12 piece by piece. First, they took the LA schools. Then, like a carrion vulture, the Big Ten circled back later and struck the decisive blow, taking Oregon and Washington, while leaving the rest of the Pac-12 to burn to the ground, uprooted by the flood of TV network money, booing Washington and Oregon to the Big Ten, while burning the bridges behind them, so everybody else had to scramble to find a place to land. Some joined the Big 12, some the ACC, but when the smoke cleared, Oregon State and Washington State, two once proud institutions, were left behind to rot. Oregon State and Wazoo continue to face an uncertain future, as do the rest of us. And it's all because this man helped destroy one of the greatest conferences in college football history. And why did he do it? Greed. Greed, I say, for more TV money. That's it. The TV networks thought they could make more money, and my shiftless colleague saw a chance to fatten his own coffers without any care for the devastation left behind. You say the future is bright. I say for whom? Not for the members of the ACC, which faces an uncertain future and potential destruction on par with the Pac-12. Not for the Big 12, which can never hope to monetarily compete with the Big 10 or SEC financially. And not for the group of 5 teams who see virtually all of their best players rated each season in the transfer portal. And don't think the top 2 conferences are safe either. Remember, at any time, the top teams could take their ball, form a super league, burn the entire history of conferences, the history of college football, the rivalries and the passion and the majesty that have sustained us for generations, and they could burn it all to the ground, leaving nothing behind but the wasted wreckage of 100 devastated fan bases out of 133, a handful of fan bases who can no longer compete and are just happy to be in the Premier League, and the top few teams feeding off the largesse of everybody else, like the parasites that Ohio State and Michigan and Georgia and Texas and Oregon are. This kind of runaway change will fracture college football forever. And fans of those teams who no longer have good conference homes will eventually stop watching, and they'll never come back. But what do you care? You're bragging about the college football homicide of the Pac-12. You're bragging about a world under NIL where formerly scrappy teams like Wake Forest and Purdue can no longer compete to even retain their players from year to year. And there is a growing underclass of power conference teams who cannot compete in this new universe. You say you're going to pay the players soon directly, but it hasn't happened yet. And who knows if it ever will with your greedy actions. I hope the players will be paid, but I regret that the Big Ten and SEC will be able to pay more than schools like Wake and Kansas, who are already struggling with the disparate amount of resources available to them compared to their Power 2 conference peers. The Big Ten has won the last 2 national titles, sure. But Michigan had to commit a years-long sign-stealing scandal in order to do so. And Ohio State is always good for one natty a decade, so they were due. 2 big years don't guarantee future dominance. What guarantees that dominance is the way the Big Ten and the SEC are hoarding the wealth by keeping the lion's share of revenue for themselves. You say your teams have legions of fans, but I just see legions of sheep ingesting your poisonous propaganda whole. And now, rather than earn their playoff spots on the field, the SEC and the Big Ten want 8 guaranteed playoff spots between them. Well, the Big 12, the ACC, and the group of 5 teams only get 5 guaranteed slots. Does that seem fair or equitable? Why do we need auto bids at all? My colleague says he wants a true meritocracy. Well, then get rid of all auto bids outside of conference champions and rank the teams 1 through 14, you coward. You already have the media in your pocket, just like Vegas. So no matter what happens on the field, the house wins. And in this case, the house is the evil Big Ten conference. And then this arrogant lech, this duplicitous spellbinder, has the audacity to tell you the Big Ten plans to expand further and will steal an ACC team in Stanford in the process. Will the Big Ten ever stop pillaging other leagues? It seems like the Big Ten and the SEC are going to split the ACC and the Big 12 open, raid them for parts. We cannot let that happen. We must resist. We must stop this unholy reign of terror by the Big Ten and the SEC. We must bring back parity to this sport. We must split the money more evenly so somebody besides the top 2 richest leagues has a chance. Because if we don't, we might wake up one day with the horrors of a super league where 70% of college football gets left behind entirely. So don't buy into my colleagues' propaganda. Don't blindly follow and cheer the Big Ten. Cheer for your school, sure, of course. But know that your school is a captive member of an evil empire. That evil empire threatens all that we hold dear and must be stopped at all costs. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your vigilance. And may God save college football. Amen.
Boo.
All right. So that was an interesting exercise.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I found myself at sometimes obviously not believing the things I was saying, but at other times it's a little close to home.
Well, because there's definitely a part of the college football that you and I grew up with doesn't exist anymore.
No,
it doesn't. And that's sad. That's definitely something that you and I really still hold on to and value the regionality of it all. And the fact that, as exciting as it is, and as much as I understand the business side of it, of why the Big Ten and the SEC are expanding and all of that, and why we're all in such a disarray with this crap every year. And, I get it. And there is some value to it, the arguments of adding Notre Dame and Stanford, there's definite, I see the benefits as far as how it would raise the value of the conference, and but it's also just not a necessity. It's greed. It is absolute greed. Adding Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, Maryland and Rutgers. Like it was just fine with 11 with Penn State. Penn State was like, oh yeah, that made sense.
Penn State made sense. They were a long time independent. It didn't hurt anybody. They joined the league, immediately added another helmet school, etc.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's people who would make an argument for how like that hurt some, maybe basketball or whatever. I don't know. You could talk about that too, but it doesn't. But it wasn't as big of an impact. And now with this whole race to expand on such a massive level, and it's no longer a joke of like, oh, super conferences. Like, it's a real conversation that's being had and has been had for now a number of years. And so we have to take it seriously, and it's scary, it is scary. Like, there's some cool stuff theoretically, but is it as cool as you think it is when it happens and you're living in that world?
No, a super conference would be awful, because even if your team makes it, you're going to get your doors kicked in.
Yep.
All the time.
Yeah.
And if your team doesn't make it, then you'll never recruit the best players ever again, because you won't be in the Super League. So, there's a lot on the line here. And I think I would like to see the conferences stay where they are. I do like the way you wrote it, because I think it fits the majority of Big Ten administrators and fans, if they were being honest.
Yeah.
Would say that they hold the South in some disdain. And that came through in your speech. And I do think if it was up to like the fans of the Big Ten, if they were like, okay, you have to add 2 teams, I think we'd much rather have Stanford and Notre Dame than Florida State and North Carolina.
Yeah, I think it does make the most sense academically, culturally. They just fit, and I get, like, the people that I hear anyways, and this is, I'm not trying to speak for everybody, but like that talk about like FSU and Miami are like, oh, like their justification is like, I'd love to go down and take a vacation down to Miami to go see a game. I'm like, yeah, cool. Like, I get it. Like, you go to something
cool. You get to go to Miami once every 12 years.
Yeah. But like now, instead of like getting to see like-minded fans, a fan base like Notre Dame that's already and has been in your academic not academic, but in your conference footprint,
and has existing rivalries with several Big Ten schools,
multiple rivalries within the Big Ten.
USC, Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue. They've had long histories with all those schools.
It makes so much more sense, and so I think that makes a lot of sense. And obviously Stanford to me makes a lot of sense, because then you would also have that connection now with more West, and like a West Coast pod, if you will, if that were to ever happen with like a pod.
You know what Stanford is like, John? Stanford is like if Northwestern had fans.
Yeah.
And it's a national fan base because it's a selective school where people come from all over the world. Much like Northwestern is a selective school where people come from all over the world and all over the country.
Yeah.
So I see what you're saying. Like, if you add Stanford and Notre Dame, you're adding 2 big national brands with big national fan bases, and you're expanding into Northern California, which gives you the whole West Coast.
Yep.
Because right now you have Southern California and the Pacific Northwest. What you're missing is Northern California.
Yep.
So that makes sense to me. I'm just afraid that the people in power are going to be like, it would be cool, Florida State and Virginia. And that's what I don't want to see.
I just don't want anything to do with Florida in general for a multitude of reasons. We don't need to.
Florida State's a bad faith actor. They sued their own league.
Yeah, like
they've demanded uneven revenue sharing. How long, if they join the Big Ten, how long before they start demanding unequal revenue sharing? Like 10 minutes?
Yeah, and I'm not for that. Like, I would rather, if we had to pick, I'd be like, we're taking Miami. Like, it's a smaller private school. It's like, it's more prestigious.
But I don't want that either.
I don't. But I'm saying, if we had to get into Florida, that's the school I would choose at this point, for the reasons you just stated. But I don't think it works. I don't want to like have this weird like outpost in the middle of the deep South. Like, I want to.
No, it doesn't make any sense at all.
No.
And for all the other sports, it doesn't make any sense travel-wise. And like, yes.
And academically. Like,
travel-wise and academically, And yeah, all those. I mean, I think there are a lot of reasons why Notre Dame and Stanford make a lot more sense than anyone else in the South.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you gotta.
And do you need the South if you have every other region of the country?
You have every major city. Like, okay, sure, you don't have.
And I understand the South has the most football talent, but like at this point, guys are guns for hire. They are. Oregon isn't having any trouble pulling guys from the South.
Yep.
Ohio State doesn't have any trouble pulling guys from the South. You know what I mean? If you pay them, they'll come.
Yep. That's the way it is now. And
yeah.
It's not just about football. It's like the Big Ten Academic Alliance, which is a massive deal when it comes to research dollars and all that kind of stuff, which people don't think about when they're just like, well, I mean, but why would you want to add Stanford when you could choose Florida State? It's a big helmet school. I'm like, it's so much more than that. Like when it comes to adding schools.
And we don't need to add 2 helmet schools.
No.
That's too many. That's too many.
Yep. And Notre Dame is big enough to basically qualify for like the prestige, the helmet school prestige of 2 or 3 of those levels of like a Florida State.
Yeah, so, they more than make up for taking a Stanford.
Absolutely.
And Stanford again has a national following, like a legit national following.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being like Stanford was when I was in middle school, John. Stanford was my number 2 team behind the Gophers.
Wow.
They were on TV a lot. And they competed against tough teams, and they were a scrappy team. And like, I was like, and I thought of I was a good student, and so I identified with them a little bit. And like, I loved Stanford. So like, there are a lot of people who gravitate towards Stanford as fans, like more than you would think.
Well, and I've heard a lot of thoughts and talks. I've talked to a few guys that are more in the know of like, the former Pac-12 and what those schools are capable of doing. And if Stanford decided to take all of the insane amounts of money that they have and invest in football, they would be competitive like overnight.
Oh, of course they would.
So, and if they make that decision and join the Big Ten, it would be a no-brainer. So, yeah.
And also somebody has to take some losses. We don't have to add all helmet schools.
No, we don't.
Yep. Like, I don't think that's good for the existing teams in the league if you only add helmet schools.
Yep.
Like, we have enough. I'm not even sure it benefits you to have as many helmet schools as the SEC thinks they have.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even sure that's good for you overall.
Yeah.
Like, you need a certain amount, but like, there's already 5 in the Big Ten. You add Notre Dame, there's 6. Do we really need more than that?
Well, that's why the SEC is strongly considering their number 1 choices. The rumor are North Carolina and Virginia.
Yeah, because North Carolina and Virginia aren't that competitive.
Yep. I mean, and there's a big population boom, which is a huge deal.
But there's good recruiting in both places.
But it's because they're not a helmet school. Like,
no.
And if they're going to jump to 9 conference games, cowards, that they would finally
jump to 9, you cowards.
Yeah. That's why they want, a non-helmet school, which makes sense, obviously. Yeah. So, but again, it makes. I just think, talking through all of this as well, like of that, what I think the part of the exercise, what I was trying to do and what both of us, I think we're trying to do as well, even though it was verbose and over the top, I think we're trying to, this is honestly real about the quality of the Big Ten over the SEC or equal to, and it's not true.
Fully equals.
Yep.
2 national titles in a row. I don't know how the Big Ten isn't 1A.
Yep.
And you hear, dude, even the people who work for CBS who are like, they need to look up their TV contracts because they seem to still be enthralled to the SEC. And they're like, well, the SEC is better top to bottom. First, I'm not convinced that's true. Two, let's say it is true. That's not how we ever judge conference strength.
No.
We always judge the top third of the conference and who the national champion is.
Yep.
So the Big Ten now has 2 national champions from different schools in consecutive years. That means you're on top. There's no way to argue that you're not on top. Like, so anyone who tries to give you the SEC is still the best speech, tell them to look at the scoreboard.
Yeah.
Because that's what they told us all those years. I remember there were years when the Big Ten was deeper than the SEC, but the SEC had Alabama. And Alabama was better than everyone, and thus they were considered the best conference.
Yeah.
So the only reason we even get this is because ESPN still has so much influence over the college football media.
Mm-hmm.
Even the people who don't work for ESPN are influenced by ESPN.
Yep.
Because of all the content that comes out of there and because of some of the respected people who work there. Like, you know, dude, I love Bill Connolly. SP Plus is great. But when he comes out and says that, like, all 14 SEC teams are great and should be in the top 25 of SP Plus, I'm just like, you're not being real. You're just not. We all watched Mississippi State last year. They weren't any good.
Nope.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Anyone who tries to convince you otherwise is just lying to you. They are. Or they're just willfully ignorant. Like, that's what it is. So, yeah, this is a cool exercise, man. You know, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I wish we had more news to report on the Big Ten, but like we said already, it's just kind of, this is the doldrums of the off season. So here we are.
I think it's interesting arguing about auto bids because I am fully against them.
Yes.
So I enjoyed that. And of course, I think you're against them too.
Yes, I am.
So you had to argue for that. But again, I'm going to say it what I said before. There's going to be a year when the Big Ten has 5 deserving teams, and one of those teams is probably going to get left out because you're locking yourself into giving the ACC and the Big 12 2 auto bids each, when neither of those conferences probably in a normal year is going to deserve 2 each in a lot of years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I just think, you know, let the best teams decide it on the field. I thought that was the reason we wanted to expand the playoff so that we could decide things on the field.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then decide it on the field.
Yeah. I thought the same thing. And also, like, then why rank these teams in order at all? You know, like, put them in tiers then, or whatever you think, like, because then what's the point in having a college football playoff ranking if you're not going to put the best teams?
The committee doesn't matter, if the committee isn't really deciding who the best teams are.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
So I think that's stupid. I just want to be on. So just, you know, I'm sure it's clear, but just so everyone knows, we don't necessarily agree with everything we were just saying.
No, we don't. No.
That was
some of it, yes.
We are being over the top for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, we are trying to talk about different issues and from different perspectives. Mm-hmm. You know, you from as if you've been Tony Petitti and or I guess the longtime Big Ten commissioner, because I also blame you for the LA schools and all that stuff. So as if you've been commissioner for a while.
I'm an amalgamation of Kevin Warren and Tony Petitti. I'm both.
Oh,
it's too bad I'm not Jim Delaney, though.
I know. I was going to say that would be much better. I was going to say Kevin Warren was not great.
Jim, come back.
And Tony Petitti, I'm cautiously optimistic.
I'm overall, I think I'm okay with it so far.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not.
Don't love it, but I'm okay.
Yes.
If we wake up one day and they're like, we're adding 4 schools, I'm going to be like, go to hell. Like, we don't want to see that.
We're combining with the SEC. Like, no.
Yeah.
Shoot me.
I'm trying to see. But yeah, I guess there's nothing. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to hit on when we go back. I think we hit on everything really we wanted to.
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to emphasize more. I really wanted to go more in depth on like the SEC and not being able to compete in the North with like the cold weather effect. But you know, I think the point was still there, but I really wanted to kind of delve into that deeper. But everybody knows. Everybody saw what happened last year.
We saw Tennessee.
Yep.
Saw SMU.
Yep.
Didn't go great. No. Oh, you disappeared for a second.
Oh, I'm back.
You're back. Nice.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. Well, then maybe we should get out of here before anything else goes wrong.
Yes. Yeah. Well, if you want to find us, We Live for Saturday. Find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. You want to find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. You can find Mike here at Alibaba26. You can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. And you can email us, We Live for Saturday, B1G@gmail.com. Please like, subscribe, resend that stuff. Tell your friends, all that stuff. Please. We need it. We love it. We appreciate you listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And quick shout out for me. I am going to be guest hosting on the Miami Flow podcast tomorrow night.
Awesome.
I believe at like 8:10, 8:15. So I will be on there and I will be promoting that on my Twitter. So look out for that if you want to see me talk just some random ball with some guys. I've never met these guys. I got a random DM about it to you want to come on the show and talk ball. And so I'm going to go on and talk some ball.
That's awesome. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear that.
Yeah, right on. So everyone check that out. And then we will be back next week with another podcast as always. And next week we'll be dressed more like ourselves and less in suits. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening as always. And we will see you in the next one.